Okay, thank you very much, Professor Lohana. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, depending on where you're joining us from today. And thank you to all of you for joining in this webinar. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Hassan Idris. I have been in the energy industry for 5 years, and my association with IEEE is twice that long. Currently, I'm serving IEEE in the capacity of the Region 10 Young Professional Representative for the Power and Energy Society. I'm grateful to the Art and Humanitarian Technology Committee for giving us this amazing opportunity to present a webinar on improving energy access in rural areas, particularly those in developing countries. We'll be using a case study for an IEEE site project uh, along with today's webinar as a template to discuss site projects. So before we move on, just want to make sure that all of us can view the screen. Prakasha, please confirm if it's possible.
Yes, it's fine.
Great. So to give you a brief outline, the webinar today, as it was mentioned by Professor Lohana, it's on improving energy access in rural areas, and we're using a case study for the IEEE Special Interest Group on Humanitarian Technology, which is SITE. We'll be discussing that at length. I'm first going to provide an introduction as to what energy poverty in the developing world means and the impact that this has on our world. This will be followed by a look at the challenges that currently impede our way to bringing energy home to 1 billion plus people in the world, and the opportunities that we can make use of to making this a reality. We will go through the IEEE site energy access projects that have taken shape across the IEEE world and how they have done their bit in solving this challenge. Finally, we will see the beginning to end story for the Empowering Umarkot project, and that how this project has been able to bring positive change in the community that we were working with. So what exactly is energy poverty, and why is this so important of a topic? As you would know, that supplying modern energy services to the 1.2 billion people worldwide who is still cooking with traditional solid fuels and lacking access to electricity, this is probably one of the most pressing problems facing humanity today. The amount of energy which is needed to satisfy the basic needs of rural populations around the world, it's relatively small, but the appropriate technologies they are needed. Widening this access to modern energy services, it's of course limited by the extreme poverty which is found particularly in the least developed countries. In response to this kind of a scenario, the then Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, Ban Ki-moon, he launched an initiative in 2011 that was called Sustainable Energy for All, SE for All, and this called on a number of institutions, including the governments, businesses, and civil society organizations, to make commitments to action to accomplish 3 objectives by 2030. Now, the first of these 3 objectives was ensuring universal access to modern energy services. Now, what that means is making sure far-reaching access to all by at least one source of energy was provided and was made possible. The second objective was doubling the global rate of improvement in energy efficiency. Now, energy efficiency, it means making technological use to reduce the use of energy, like using LED bulbs instead of heat-producing incandescent light bulbs. Third objective was to make sure that the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix was doubled. That means making sure the ratio of energy sources like wind, solar, and hydro in 2030 to the global energy input was double as what it was in 2011 by both increasing renewable energy use and also by reducing the use of fossil fuels that emit greenhouse gases. Now, this initiative was caught on far and wide, so much so that the UN General Assembly and their staff members, their member states unanimously declared the decade that we are in presently, from 2014 all the way to 2024, as the decade of sustainable energy for all. This is one of the many positive things which the last Secretary General did, and you can read all about that and the SE4All website as well. Now, the question is, the question which arises, it's this: what can you do to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all? In the capacity of a maybe an IEEE volunteer, be it at whatever level, it is your duty to think about this question. Now, from the 17 UN Sustainability Development Goals, which I'm sure you're aware of, the 7th goal forms our motivation to provide affordable and clean energy, which is mentioned here. The progress in rural electrification all over the world, it uses both centralized and grid-based approaches and small-scale decentralized technologies. They can significantly improve living standards in rural areas. The technological developments alone, they're not sufficient to make sure that this is a reality, and a lot of action has to be taken on the ground by not only the governments but also the individuals and other organizations like IEEE. And now, if you think about it, for the approximately 7.7 billion people in the world, about 3 billion people, they have an unsafe, expensive, and fossil-based access. That's a lot of people. And of this 3 billion people, up to 30% of their revenue on 1 year, done by a study by Schneider Electric, their revenue was spent on inefficient and dangerous forms of energy. Those forms of energy, in short, which pollute the environment. Now, that's a heartbreaking statistic. I mean, not only do you have people who do not have access to energy, there's a large part of that population, apart from that, who are using energy sources which are unclean and which damage the environment. Now, this lack of adequate energy services in rural areas of developed countries, especially, it has social dimensions as well as serious environmental and health effects. Many of these problems, they're exacerbated by the almost exclusive reliance of rural populations in most areas on traditional fuels like biogas, like cow manure, and other kinds of locally sourced material. What this does was that it is not only low on energy efficiency, it also releases harmful emissions. And there should be a focus on technological opportunities as well as other strategies to make sure that adequate, affordable, clean energy supplies to rural areas, they're delivered. And that is the question which we are here to answer today, and we are looking for different opportunities, different ways by we can make sure that this happens through different avenues of IEEE volunteering, whether it is SITE, whether it is the Humanitarian Technology Initiative, or whichever venture you are working in with IEEE. You already know that the second half of the 20th century, it witnessed a strong urbanization trend and the emergence of megacities, especially those in Asia, including China, India, large parts of Far East Asia, and South Asia as well. And those megacities contain more than 10 million people. This kind of trend grew in the second half of 20th century. Between 1970 and 1990, this share of people which were living in cities, it grew from 28 to 50%. Now, that's a huge increase. All the while, the rural population relatively decreased during this period. The absolute number of people who were living in rural areas, it increased to 3 billion. Now, despite all of this growth, the rural development, it often remains low on government agendas primarily because of increasing demands of growing politically and economically dominant urban populations. Now, in countries like China and India, like the large ones in Asia, a large part of population actually lives in rural areas, but they do not get as much attention or as much resources as larger cities do. Now, this explosive growth of cities, makes it very difficult for policymakers to give rural development the attention it deserves. Moving on, this is one slide which I was moved by a lot. I'm hoping that you can see that. This was a picture from Vox.com. It's a news and other kinds of media outlet. This picture shows how Delhi became the most polluted city on earth in November 2017. That news outlet actually reported that breathing in the city, it actually was akin to smoking 50 cigarettes a day. And this is a huge analogy which is implicating a lot of things. Now, what happens in and around Delhi is that, like, there's a lot of crop burning activity goes on. There's a lot of activity which is damaging the environment. Now, this is not primarily linked with just energy, but it is actually linked to the damaging effects of on the environment, which happens because of our whether it is nonchalance, whether it is our need, or whatever our wants are toward some sort of energy source. So in that period in 2017 November, the air quality, it reached epically bad proportions and was categorized as the worst or hazardous category. You can see here, and you would know from personal experience as well, that energy has innumerable benefits. It creates social and economic development, and it creates a better life. According to one of the many programs which are run by Schneider Electric and other organizations, their aims and their goals when they're working in communities in which they want to provide improved energy access, it not only improves the usage or the efficiency of energy, it also impacts other areas in which the society lives. This includes health, for example, and within health, they're able to provide safe lighting. There's a storage for medicine, like they can keep their medicines in like things like refrigerators and cool them. They can improve their health services, say by a consultant who can sit not only during day but also thanks to lighting services during night as well. Economic development happens a lot. The community can invest their time in agriculture. They can open up. They can invest their own skills and in their skills and talents into other activities, which can provide them with some economic benefit, as we will see in one of the projects in which we were going to read about today. Additionally, security is also one area where the impact of energy happens. During one of the projects in which we were working, we saw that once we completed the project, the community felt safer because during nighttime, they were having access to electricity, they were having access to energy, and that provided them with a sense of relief. So that was because that community was in a rural area where they were having more incidents from wild animals and other kinds of insects. So that was something which provided them security with. Education is also one area which has a positive impact thanks to the positive effects of energy. There are improved working conditions reported at school and at home thanks to better energy services. And another area is access to water. So with better, say for example, solar powered pumps, you can have provision of drinking water and irrigation. So there's actually a lot of fallout benefits of energy, and making sure that the improved access of energy happens in rural areas. This creates a lot of snowball effect. Here I have some details as to the access to energy program, which is run by Schneider Electric. Now, this is one of their private programs, and we will see how different organizations are running these kind of programs in their own capacity. The point of deliberating some time on this is to see how effective and how sustainable energy programs are run. A lot of times, different communities and different projects, they're engaged in some kind of relationship, which leads to just one end. Now, that's not just bad per se, but it would be much more beneficial if a little bit more time and energy is invested in that project, so that some sort of objectives are achieved, which are cross-functional, which are multifaceted. For example, this program, the Schneider Electric organization, they offer some sort of business models to the local community people, which helps them design and deploy adequate electrical distribution systems. They provide some sort of microfinance schemes, some sort of investments, which can, provide the seed funding for innovative energy entrepreneurship local programs. And finally, they also provide vocational training, so that can help the local people deal with a lot of troubleshooting systems, deal with a lot of hands-on issues, which happen thanks to this program actually, and this can help address local skill shortages. Yes. So what happens when we have a win-win scenario? Here I'm just going to talk a bit about how you can enable effective and winning partnerships, and how you can make sure that access to markets happens. So a lot of times when people are working in developed countries, they have issues with these two areas. They're not able to connect with the right organizations, or they're not able to have access to the right market. I was able to separate this to make a distinction between two kinds of organizations which do this work across the world. Within the private sector, you can see there are some organizations which are mentioned here: Philips or Signify, which it has been named recently. There's Little Sun, Schneider Electric, Euro Electric, GE, AECOM. Now, this is not the only, it's not like a comprehensive list here, but these organizations have a massive footprint, not only in the developed world, but also in the developing world, which includes large parts of Africa, which includes Latin America, which includes Central America, which includes developing Asia, and all those areas where you would not generally have access to. On the other hand, humanitarian and development actors, they're also working globally, and their primary focus area is not the developed world, but the developing world per se. So what happens is that when you are able to cross these two areas, like not only the private sector actors, but also the humanitarian and development actors, there is a lot of possibility where you can mix and match and make sure that you're able to reach the right community and you're able to make the right partnership. I was able to find some organizations. Again, this is not a comprehensive list on the right either. So there is MEI, which is the Moving Energy Initiative, EWB USA, which is Engineers Without Borders in the United States. Then there is COOPI, which is the Cooperation International. It's a Latin American organization. There's FAO, which is the Food and Agriculture Organization, Practical Action, World Bank, and IFC programs. There's a World Food Program. The GIZ is the German Corporation for International Cooperation. It's spelled in Deutsch or German. And then there's, of course, the IEEE Foundation. So the point here is that once you are embarking on a platform where you want to create a winning relationship, this is something you can work on and make sure that you're able to reach out to the right organizations. Now, there are lots of challenges, of course, which exist on the ground, and these challenges can be converted into opportunities when you're working with developing access to or improving access to energy in rural areas. Now, the first problem or the first challenge which occurs very frequently is the fact that the margins are very low. So if, for example, you have a business organization and you want to deploy, say, lighting, energy efficient light bulbs in a developing country or developing community, and you will see, of course, that the margins of profit are very low. That's primarily because of the fact that the consumers there would not be able to either purchase them in large quantity, or they would not be able to afford that. So you would not be going there with a high profit making target. Secondly, the objective should be that, I mean, it should be kept in mind that the cost which incurs initially, it's high, and so is the risk. So when you're working in developing countries, there is a risk which inherently exists. This could be related to security, this could be related to the political situation, this could be related to logistics, or even can be simple design issues. So a lot of issues actually exist on the ground, and they need to be assessed really well in advance. One of the very interesting tools available to IEEE site volunteers and basically everyone is the PESTEL analysis, which is available online on their site toolkit, and that includes the political, environment, social, technological, legal, and education. Like there's lots of areas where you can analyze each risk and assess it and make sure that you develop the mitigating techniques to solve those or be able to tackle those challenges or risks head on. There's also an issue of lack of capital, and you're not able to source enough investments to actually start that project. There's an issue with locating the right local partner and institutional commitment. Many times the local partner is you're not able to find one, not able to have a trustworthy partner locally, and then there can be a problem with institutional commitment in the local scenario. One more challenge which can exist is that without the traditional distribution, which happens in a regular developed economy, say for example, the cost can go really high for entrepreneurs to get supplies. Now the supply chain is something which can get disturbed very easily because of the fact that you're not sure about each and every step. I mean, it is very routine to deliver, say, soaps or basic consumer good items to stores in the US and in North America and in Europe, but it's not so much easy, say, in a small community in West Africa. So those kind of issues are very contrasting, and it should be looked upon at the onset of the project. In fact, before the project even started. There's also a need to balance traditional aid with the most vulnerable and sustainable solutions. So that should be taken care of. And finally, the cash disbursement programs, they open up an opportunity, but they still need support. So there are like different options which entrepreneurs can look at, they can find value in. But basically, the point which I'm trying to make here is that every situation, every project needs to be looked upon with the best local scenario. There should be a lot of trust which needs to be earned, and then the solution needs to be the right design fit for the community. Now we'll just take a look at a few of the site projects which have had some sort of focus on energy. This is one of the projects which was done in El Salvador. It was a development of a photovoltaic solar system of 3.2 kilowatts. The community of a Perkin in El Salvador, it had a population of 400 inhabitants who were living in extreme poverty. According to the report, their survival was through tourism, and the people lived through by a means of sowing of tomatoes and cabbages. At this sort of livelihood mechanism was insufficient for the family economy, and that resulted in a lot of migration. It was legal or illegal to Central American countries, or to the US as well. So there was this greenhouse which had machinery for conditioning the environment, and what this team, the site team, was able to do was make sure that they worked with the local community, and they provided the electricity that required the greenhouse machines to power, and that was something which enabled the local community to develop an additional source of income, which was very useful for the people at hand. This site project was in Bangladesh. It was a solar powered wheelchair, and the problem that the site volunteers addressed was related to mobility of disabled people. Now these volunteers saw a challenge that the disabled people were bound to their wheelchairs and they had limited mobility access. So what they did was that their target was to build a system which would increase the moving distance of the wheelchair, and this would be something by which they would actually be using a renewable energy source that would not only be environmentally friendly but also be cheap. And finally, the solution which they ended up developing was an electric wheelchair that could charge the battery without the help of access to grid, and it was a low-speed wheelchair that could cover long distances. Another project here which we're looking at is the site project in an Indian community. There were two phases in this project according to the site volunteers. In the first phase, they were electrifying a remote village in Edamulakal. I'm not sure where that was, probably somewhere where they can, if the volunteers are joining us, they can tell us more about it. I'm not sure if the picture is of the same project. This was from the site blog. The second phase of this side project was to assist the consumers to reduce their electricity consumption by using solar energy and by proper demand side management and distribution reconfiguration. So this was dated back to December 2017. Not sure as to the current status of this project, but it definitely was an interesting project, which not only had a local energy use, but also had a far-reaching distribution system operations impacts. Now, yeah, what are exactly the steps which can lead you to a successful site project? These steps which are mentioned here, they're not like set in stone, so you can go back and forth in some of them, and that is what encouraged when you're working in a human-centered design solution. I mean, the idea is, of course, to make sure that the solution is provided to the community, which is best fit for their needs. But there is a certain way you're supposed to work holistically. This sort of a chain, it begins with the pre-assessment feasibility. What this means is that before you actually begin a project, before you actually start something, you need to make sure that your problem statement has some validity, it has some feasibility once it is fulfilled. So you're not only going to reverse engineer the solution, but you're also going to make sure that your solution is feasible financially, technically, different ways. And this happens before you actually visit the site. So there's a lot of projects which can get shut down in the initial phase, and that's fine. The next step, once you're able to make sure that the solution is feasible, is to survey. Now this survey happens once you're on the site. So you're able to see what's happening on the site. You see what sort of problems which people are facing, and then you solve those problems. This is followed by the design phase, where you get down to your drawing boards and make sure that you're developing some sort of the right solution, the right product, the right service to help alleviate that problem. Now, grant writing is not exactly a step if you're working in a technological entrepreneurship area, but it can be one if you're working on a site project. This is followed by engineering and installation. That means that once you've designed your product or your service, once you have a commitment of funding, you're able to engineer and install the actual solution on the site, which leads you to the handing over of the solution, and then regular operations and maintenance of the solution, and then finally communication with the community. I mean, it's not like once the solution is deployed, everything ends. No, you make sure that communication is established. You make sure that whenever assistance is needed, you're able to provide that, and that is what ensures longevity of your solution. Now we're going to go to that case study which I was talking about in the beginning of the presentation. I'll just give you a brief overview of what electrification scenario in Pakistan is like. So in Pakistan, there's a population of about 200 million, and of that 200 million, about 140 million people either have no access to the power grid or suffer daily outages. Now, of course, the vast majority of this 140 million is those people who are suffering outages, because even in large cities, outages are common. These countrywide shortfalls can be as high as 8.5 gigawatts. According to some reliable estimates, chronic power shortage outages, they cost the economy of the country about 14 billion rupees in 2015. And there is still a lot of areas without power. There are some villages in southern part of the Punjab province. There are some northwest villages, northwest hilly areas in this part of the area of the country. and then there's some eastern Sindh province where there are lots of communities without power, and then there are some southwest areas of Balochistan where they still don't have power. So the project which we were focusing on back when we started our IEEE site work was in this community in Revi Jidhani, Umarkot, and this is located in the eastern part of Sindh, which is still not having access to reliable power, and that's where our solution was focused on. So Umarkot was the district in which we worked. Just some background information about this community, what this means, what they were having statistics like. This area is perennially drought-ridden. So what that means is that they don't have access to, let alone energy, they don't have access to continuous water supply, which is even more of a pressing problem for the people. In that entire area, that district, there are like about 700,000 people, according to the 2016 estimates. Of these people, there are about 23,725 villages that existed. Now, a lot of these villages are small, just like the one which we worked in. It was a small village, but the problem which existed was that they neither had access to power or water. The 50% of the people, like the 700,000 people, they lived with $1.90 a day, and that's poverty line according to some estimates, and that's a huge part of the population which lives under poverty. The female literacy was 10%. Infant mortality was really high, and other statistics suggested that there's a lot of diverse community which lived, and they had some really choppy means of earning. Now, Revi Jidhani was the community where we worked in. This is one of the pictures where we surveyed on the site. This was a small community with about 30 households. Around 200 people lived there at the time, and that was around 67 persons in one house. Demographically, this was a very young community. A lot of potential for education, and the right business ideas and models existed. Within this area, we saw that there was usually one breadwinner per household who had to feed about 67 persons in that household. So the average income for one breadwinner was about 200 rupees a day, or about $2.83 a day. It was like not a lot. This community was in the midst of desert, right smack in the middle of the Rajasthan desert in India, which crosses India and Pakistan. There was little or no farming in this area, and men and women usually went to other villages for wheat or cotton picking. The areas where we worked in this community, it included, it was an energy solution, of course. It included, apart from that, rechargeable light fixtures for latrines or toilets. No lights existed as of then, and going to the toilets for people at night, it meant exposing themselves to the risk of snakes and scorpions and other kinds of wild insects in the dark. It was not only a problem for men, not only a problem for women and children, but also a problem for men. We also saw the environment through business as a solution, and we also saw the livestock shepherding and poultry as a potential offshoot solution thanks to our energy solution. The challenges which we encountered during this project were basically threefold. One was issues with people. There was a lot of difficulty in getting local engagement, but this was solved when we were able to get in touch with the right community partner. It was a local, non-governmental organization which we worked with, and they had a lot of trust, very good trust with the local community. They spoke the same language. They were previously engaged with the community, and that's how we were able to bypass that challenge. There were some political and societal roadblocks as well. We were able to get a memorandum of understanding signed with the local union committee, union council representative, and that was some initial friction with the local community, but that was solved when their government representative was on board. Finally, there was some financial challenge as well. We were unsure of long-term funding. We were unsure that we would get the right business model, and that was something which we thought was an issue in the beginning. I'll quickly take you through the design phase, what actually constituted that. There was a lot of survey results which we had to do. A lot of survey results had to be extrapolated correctly. There was a good amount of technical and commercial analysis of feasibility which had to take place. There was lots of drawings and designs and layouts which we had to do, like going back, and then of course design meetings where we discussed what we had right and not so much. This was followed by the installation phase. Just a few pictures here. We were able to engage well with the community. One good thing was that they were very friendly once you had overcome that initial trust gap, and that is actually what happens in a lot of areas where we actually get to work. Because if you're not able to make sure that you're able to gel in well with the community, it leaves. If you're not able to gel in well with the community, it does not really help you with the project. Just a few more pictures of the installation, what it looked like once we were working on. I think I have a video here as well. Let's see, probably the next slide. So this is what it looked like once we were done with the community, once the project was installed. Let me see if I can play this. So basically, that was just to give you an idea of the community, what it looked like, and just to give you a feel of it. Once we were through with the installation and commissioning and handing it over to the local community, we wanted to make sure that they were in the best of hands. Like the system was not left to to rot. So what we did was that we made a PV system maintenance guide in English, and that was also translated to Sindhi, which was the local language. We gave that entire manual to the organization with which we were working with, and it had a maintenance schedule, like what needs to be done daily, weekly, monthly. It had maintenance log sheet for all of these durations. It had system drawings, and then we wanted to make sure that people knew what they were doing. So this was one of the steps which we believe enabled our successful and still is enabling its successful run through. Some other aspects of how we ensured this was that this was the regular reporting, which the local community, it's termed as AWARE, which stands for the Association for Water, Applied Knowledge and Renewable Energy, and they work in different areas, and they make sure that they're able to send in regular reports of the system as and when needed. One of the great things which they were able to do was get the people into a community meeting. They had that initially, which was like an onboarding thing for the people in the beginning. This sheet here in the middle, it shows as you can see, it shows a lot of thumbprints, like thumb signatures right next to their names and their designation as to what they represent, which community they represent. And this was like a contract for those people that now that these PV systems were installed in their community, they were in charge of that, and they were able to devote money every month to like a community piggy bank, and that enabled its regular operation and maintenance. This is one of the maps, was this one, which just helped people understand the location of their houses. This is just a story from the actual site, and I just named it Side Stories. I'll just read it through it. A woman named Kasonbi who belonged to this village, she shared her views. She said that after this project, I can stay at home alone in the evenings now. Earlier, I had to call somebody from the neighborhood to stay with me because of the fear from wild animals when my husband was not at home. And snake and insect bites were also common in the village. As such incidents are reduced, children of our village, they spend significant portion of their time in household activities in daytime and did not previously have the light study at night, but now they do continue this study at night and late hours. Her husband, Mehram, said that before this, they used to spend the money and time to charging phones from the nearby stations. But now the PV systems, they help us charge and improve communication, and expenditure on lighting and charging has been reduced substantially. So this PV system also had outlets for like small phone charging outlets, and this was really helpful to the people. Our way forward from that was charting out the sustainable scope of work. We wanted to make sure that once we were done with the installation and commissioning, it was not left for you know for not left in wilderness. So we wanted to make sure that it was sustainable, which is why we engaged local leadership, and we also located potential funding partners so that they're able to sustain in once this, for example, they need more expensive batteries, for example, once they need some more money for troubleshooting, apart from the fact that they were, of course, contributing their own money monthly. I'm just going to end it in a slide here. So these are just a few of the sources which I used to develop a lot of the initial part of the presentation content. You probably should check out these sources. They're really helpful information they have got. The Clean Energy Solutions Center, the SE for All, which is Sustainable Energy for All initiative, Schneider Electric, the United Nations Development Program, and the United Nations Human, the Commission for Refugees, IEEE site and Smart Cities, of course, and the Engineers Without Borders USA. So just in conclusion, what we believe is that the relationship between energy services and the development outcomes, it's complex, and it's influenced by many factors, which are social, economic, environmental conditions, and the capacity at individual, institutional, local, and national levels. We think that improved understanding about these factors, they can definitely shape the relationship between energy services and development outcomes that can significantly contribute to the design of better policies and programs. And with that, I thank you very much. You can ask questions. We have, I think, about 10 to 15 minutes. Or if you're not able to get some time, you can email me a question or a comment or suggestion. Thank you very much. That's it.